I was bending over to sign my daughter out at daycare when my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I thought it was Marcus, my husband, texting about dinner, like always. But instead of asking what I wanted to eat, the message was short, cold, and cut like a knife. I've moved to Italy with Madison. All our savings have been transferred to my private account. Good luck paying rent. I froze. My pen halted mid-signature, ink still wet on the paper. 4-year-old Ellie looked up at me with innocent eyes, completely unaware that our world had just been shattered by one sentence. "Mommy, did you bring the kitty-shaped cookies today?" she asked, excited. I forced a smile, finished the paperwork, then typed a robotic response. "Thanks for the update." Those 3 emotionless words were all I could muster through the shock and humiliation clawing at my throat. I didn't want Madison, Marcus's former assistant, to know I was trembling, hands ice cold. We made it to the parking lot. The cold wind slapped my face like a cruel reminder. There was no turning back. "Where's Daddy?" Ellie asked as I buckled her in. "Daddy's on a business trip," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Is he making pasta tonight?" "Not tonight, sweetheart. We're having pizza, just the 2 of us." I kept my tone light, but inside I was screaming. I didn't even know how much we had left. I only knew I had exactly $12 in my wallet. When we got home, I opened my laptop, logged into our bank account, and there it was. $326.54. Our 2-bedroom apartment in Seattle cost $1,950.00 a month, due in 3 days. I collapsed onto a chair. Ellie sat giggling at her favorite cartoon, but I was frozen. That number, $326.54, was all that remained after 8 years of marriage, thousands of dinners I cooked, countless sleepless nights with a feverish child, and months of careful saving from freelance editing work. I called the bank. The woman on the line was polite, but her voice sounded like a verdict. Marcus had emptied our joint account, over $38,000, and because both names were on it, there was nothing they could do. "It's not considered illegal," she said. "Not illegal. Just the destruction of a family." I can barely remember how that call ended. Sitting in the dark, Ellie came over and placed her scruffy, stuffed animal in my hand. "Don't be sad, Mommy. Coco can sleep with you tonight." I hugged her tight, doing everything I could not to cry. My phone buzzed again. Caller ID, Pamela. "My former mother-in-law," I answered, trying to stay composed. "Ava, why are you keeping Marcus from seeing Ellie? He told me you're demanding more child support just to let him see his daughter." Years later, I almost dropped the phone. "Excuse me?" I asked, stunned. "Him showed me your texts. I've known him for 30 years. He'd never do something that low." "Pamela, he just left both me and your granddaughter, moved to Italy with his mistress, and drained our entire savings. Stop making things up. I don't want to hear another word from you." The call ended like a door slammed in my face. That's when I realized Marcus hadn't just abandoned us. He'd crafted an entire narrative where I was the villain. The spiteful ex-wife, the manipulative mother, the greedy woman demanding money. I gripped the phone tighter. Shame had given way to something colder. Clarity. I hadn't even processed Pamela's call when a new email popped into my inbox. From Marcus's lawyer, Ethan Brillman. The subject line knocked the breath out of me. Request for cooperation regarding minor child custody. I opened it. Each word hit like a blow to the head. "Dear Mrs. Ava Wilson, our client, Mr. Marcus Wilson asserts that you have deliberately obstructed the father-daughter relationship between him and Ellie Wilson and have made unreasonable financial demands in the form of indirect child support in exchange for visitation." I read it over and over, as if hoping a line might disappear, but no. Marcus had officially cast me as the villain. A manipulative extortionist, an unfit mother. I dropped the phone onto the table, nausea rising in my throat. Not long after, I got a text from an old friend, Jenna, who still kept in touch with a few of Marcus's former coworkers. Ava, I just heard from someone at Marcus's old firm. He's telling people you had postpartum issues and were abusive to Ellie. That's why he took her. I stood frozen in the kitchen. Abusive? I had struggled with postpartum depression, yes, but I had never once harmed Ellie. Marcus was the one who drove me to therapy, who told me I was brave for seeking help, and now he was using that time of vulnerability to destroy my reputation as a mother. It didn't stop there. That evening, I received a video call from Mr. Ron, the retired police officer who lived downstairs. Ava, I don't mean to pry, he said gently, but someone just knocked on my door asking about you. Oh. A man claiming to be a family services investigator said he was gathering information to assess your parenting. I felt like I was living in a scripted drama. Marcus wasn't just accusing me, he was turning it into a formal case. Step by step, he was building a file to claim Ellie would be better off away from me. The very next day, I received a letter from Family Services. An anonymous report had been submitted about unstable living conditions at my address. They'd be conducting a home check within 7 days. I thought my head might explode. I cleaned the entire apartment, scrubbed every surface, hid every trace of exhaustion. I laughed more with Ellie, read her bedtime stories longer, and told myself not to cry once she fell asleep. Then, one Monday afternoon, while editing a manuscript for a client, I received a photo from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of a text conversation between me and Marcus from 2 years ago, during my treatment period. It showed me writing. I'm so exhausted today. Ellie's been crying non-stop. Sometimes I just want to disappear. The message had been cut short, the context deleted. It was being framed as evidence that I was mentally unfit to be a mother. Attached was a single follow-up text. We have more. I knew Marcus wasn't doing this alone. Pamela had once said to me, the first time I mentioned postpartum depression, if you couldn't handle motherhood, why did you have a child in the first place? Her voice rang in my head, sharp as ever. Now I knew. They were working together. That night, I called Jenna. I can't lose this case, Jenna, I said hoarsely. Not because of Marcus, because of Ellie. They're turning her into a weapon. Jenna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, there's an attorney I know, Lorraine Keegan. Low profile, but sharp. She helped a friend of mine win custody after being dragged through worse. I wrote the name and address down immediately. When I hung up, Ellie was fast asleep, clutching her worn-out stuffed bunny. I whispered, they won't take you from me, I promise. I used to be a senior editor at a literary fiction press in Portland. The income was solid, the work was creative, and I loved it so much I once imagined I'd stay there for life. But when Ellie was born, Marcus started hinting that I should quit and dedicate myself fully to motherhood. You're the only one Ellie needs right now, he said, his eyes warm with what I thought was care, but later realized was calculated. Finances? I've got us covered. You don't need to worry about a thing. And I listened. I convinced myself it was for our daughter, for our family. I handed in my resignation, packed up my desk, and walked away with a cardboard box full of books and handwritten good luck notes from coworkers. Within 3 months, things started shifting. Marcus stopped showing me his pay stubs. When I asked, he brushed it off. It's all numbers and jargon. You hate that stuff. He opened a separate account to better manage expenses. I agreed. I'd already handed him my career. One more account didn't seem like a big deal. Then came the phone. Marcus used to leave it lying around the house, but around that time, he started taking it everywhere, even into the shower. One time I picked it up just to check the time, and he darted in from the kitchen, snatching it from my hand like I'd touched classified documents. Work stuff, he said. This new project's top secret. I didn't press, but unease began curling in my chest. The number of nights he worked late increased. Uber receipts and restaurant bills from places I'd never heard of started landing in our inbox. Client meetings, he said. One day I found a travel book wedged behind the sofa, Living Abroad in Tuscany. Inside, several pages were dog-eared. Next to it was a notebook in Marcus's handwriting. Notes on living costs, EUS/USD conversion rates, a few Italian contact names. I asked him directly and he just shrugged. Is dreaming. Who doesn't dream of Europe, right? I smiled at the time, but deep down I knew. People don't bookmark pages and write budgets for dreams they never plan to live. I started checking our bank account every day, logging every deposit and expense. But then Marcus switched to using more cash, leaving little trace. Once, I found an envelope with $1,400, 0 cents tucked inside his gym bag, along with a receipt from a jewelry store. A deposit for a colleague, he said, irritation seeping through. Are you seriously accusing me of something now? I didn't reply. But from that moment on, I began password protecting my laptop, changing my personal email, and saving copies of every document I could find. I remember one night Ellie had gone to bed and Marcus and I were watching TV. He leaned over, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "I'm so lucky to have a wife who never questions anything." I smiled weakly. That sentence still haunts me. I dropped Ellie off with the neighbor and drove straight to Marcus's old office in downtown Seattle. I'd been there before for company parties, but this time my stomach was tight with a sharp instinct. I was about to uncover something I couldn't unsee. The front desk receptionist, Lily, with platinum hair and a perfectly pressed uniform, looked up as I approached. "Hi, I'd like to speak with Marcus Wilson." She paused. "I'm afraid he no longer works here." "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Minth submitted his resignation almost 2 weeks ago. His last day was last Friday. I froze. "I'm his wife." Lily looked briefly uncomfortable. "I'm very sorry. That's all I know." I stepped back from the counter, my head spinning. He had left the company before sending that goodbye text. Yet he had been pretending all week to be working overtime, supporting his family. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, staring at the steering wheel like it might give me an answer. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I never imagined I'd call in this situation, Ben Foster. He was Marcus's longtime coworker and his Super Bowl beer buddy. I still had his number from that one time Marcus asked me to drop something off at the office. Ben picked up after 2 rings. "Ava?" "Oh, hey, is everything okay? Do you have a few minutes? It's about Marcus." "Yeah, probably should. I've been kind of expecting your call." I pulled into a parking lot nearby. "You already know?" Ben sighed. "Not everything, but Marcus has been talking about this for a while. Since late summer, actually. He said he was planning to cut ties here. Said there's this woman, Madison, waiting. In Europe." I couldn't breathe. "Since summer? What about Ellie?" "What did he say?" And said, "Ellie will be fine. Ava's a good mom. She doesn't need me." Like he was convincing himself that leaving his kid made sense. I gripped the phone tighter. "Do you know where he is now?" "Last I heard, they were heading to Florence. Apparently Madison has some contacts helping with housing and a job there." "I need your help, Ben." "What do you need?" "Anything he ever told you. Emails, messages, account info if you have it. You're not betraying him. You're helping a little girl who has no idea what's happening." Ben was silent for a moment, then said slowly, "I get it. I'll go through everything I have and send it today." I hung up, my mind blank, hands trembling. That night, after Ellie had gone to bed, I received an email from Ben. Attached was a screenshot of a message Marcus had sent him. "I left Ava with enough to get by for a few months. She'll dig, but eventually she'll understand this is best for all of us. Mom says this is our shot to finally get Ellie the right way." Man, Pamela, the woman who pretended to be kind to my face but never hid her disdain. She once bluntly said during Christmas dinner that Ellie would do better in a household with real discipline. I opened my personal file folder and started printing everything: messages, receipts, bank statements I'd quietly gathered over the past few months, papers scattered across the floor like broken pieces of a family betrayed from the inside. I looked around our small apartment. Everything looked the same: the light brown couch, the wedding photo on the shelf, Ellie's drawings taped to the fridge. But I was not the same. Marcus thought I'd cry, collapse, accept being left with a child and mounting bills. He forgot I used to run a whole publishing department, and I knew exactly how to write a comeback no one would see coming. 3 days after my conversation with Ben, I received an express parcel from Florence, Italy. The return address bore the name of an international law firm, stamped with an official legal seal. A chill ran down my spine. I opened the envelope and pulled out a nearly 20-page packet, carefully typed. Divorce papers. Petitioner, Marcus Wilson. Sender's address, Via della Scala, 38, Florence. I sat in stunned silence. So this was it? He had officially made me a stranger from halfway across the world. I started reading. In the request section, Marcus proposed granting me full custody of Ellie, while stating he would not provide any financial support due to current limitations. The reasoning? The mother is best suited to provide emotional stability during the transitional period. But what made me want to throw the entire document out the window was the paragraph that followed. The husband asserts that he has made multiple efforts to maintain a relationship with Ellie, but the wife has repeatedly refused, citing financial motives and using the child as leverage. He was rewriting history. Marcus was the one who cut off all contact, vanished like smoke. He blocked his number, shut down all communication channels, and drained our joint account, leaving me scrambling with exactly $326.54. I flipped to the appendix and nearly bit my lip to bleeding when I saw the attached screenshots of evidence-cropped texts he had cherry-picked. Messages I had sent, begging him to come back so Ellie wouldn't be hurt, now twisted into the ramblings of an unstable mother, issuing veiled threats. Tucked inside the envelope was a handwritten letter, clearly not from a lawyer. It was Marcus's handwriting. Slightly slanted, tidy, deceptively sincere. Eva, I know you're angry, but we both know you're not okay. After Ellie was born, you once said you felt like disappearing. I don't blame you. Motherhood is hard. But I think it's best if you focus on Ellie now and let me step away. Not for me, but for both of you. I hope we can finalize this soon. Wishing you peace. Marcus. My hands trembled as I gripped the letter. That very night, I brought everything to Lorraine Keegan's office. She was the attorney Jenna had recommended, unassuming in appearance, firm in voice, and sharp-eyed like she missed nothing. She read through every page silently, only nodding and marking sections with quick, deliberate notes. At the end, she said, "This isn't uncommon. People like Marcus love to strike first to gain control. Their weakness is thinking that just writing something down makes it true." I placed both hands on her desk, my throat thick. He's building a whole narrative. And if I don't fight back, Ellie will grow up thinking I'm the one who drove her father away. Then we counterstrike. First, we'll file a formal response rejecting all of Marcus's terms. Then we start collecting evidence to expose every lie he's submitted. I nodded, for the first time feeling a flicker of strength in my chest. Lorraine locked eyes with me. He's trying to paint you as a weak and cruel mother. Are you ready to prove him wrong? I clenched my fists. I'll do whatever it takes. For my daughter. I began dedicating every spare hour, when Ellie was at daycare or fast asleep, to turning the tiny home office into a legal war room. Lorraine had instructed me to collect every document related to Marcus. Bills, texts, bank statements, old agreements, even handwritten letters and family photos that could prove I'd been Ellie's primary caregiver. I tore through every drawer, storage box, even dusty binders under the bed. At the bottom of one old box, stuffed with the coffee machine warranty and Ellie's birth certificate copy, I found a thick, cream-colored envelope with handwriting I recognized instantly. For Mom. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a birthday card and a handwritten letter, clearly from Marcus. Thanks for helping me cover the deposit for the apartment in Florence. Madison and I will try to get settled before you come visit next month. None of this could have happened without you. The date? 3 months ago. Exactly when Marcus started using overtime as an excuse to stay out more often. I snapped pictures of the letter, saved a PDF, and printed a copy for Lorraine. But the real shock didn't come from a dusty old box. It came Tuesday morning when I got an international call from a +34 number. A woman introduced herself as Carlota Iniguez, head of HR at a tech company in Barcelona, where Marcus had recently applied for a position. "Hello, Ms. Wilson," she said, her voice calm but laced with something unspoken. "We received an email from an account that appears to be yours, containing several documents accusing Mr. Marcus Wilson of financial misconduct and family abandonment." I froze. "I didn't send anything." "We suspected as much," she replied. The tone and formatting didn't match standard legal correspondence, but we were still obligated to remove Mr. Wilson from our candidate list under our ethics screening policy. "Could you send me a copy of that email right away?" A minute later, my inbox pinged. I opened it, heart pounding. Sender, at volwilson.editor@gmail.com. That wasn't my email. I had never used a Gmail account. My only professional address was tied to my freelance editing work. The email contained a PDF attachment with scanned versions of documents I had submitted to Lorraine's office, including Marcus's letter to his mother and bank statements showing suspicious transfers. But the last paragraph of the email made my blood run cold. "If your company continues to consider hiring Marcus Wilson, I won't hesitate to go public with his misconduct via social media and the press. This is not a threat. This is a warning from a mother protecting her child." The language was emotional, unprofessional, nothing close to what a lawyer would write. Most importantly, it wasn't from me. I examined the email metadata. The originating IP wasn't from Seattle. It came from Connecticut. Pedulat, Pamela lives in Connecticut. I immediately called Lorraine. Someone impersonated me to send documents to an overseas company Marcus applied to. They used a fake email and private materials, and it all traces back to Connecticut. Lorraine didn't hesitate. "Send me everything. We'll pursue charges for identity fraud and interference with ongoing litigation." I sent her everything I had, including the photo of Marcus's letter labeled "For Mom." 3 hours later, Lorraine called back. "I spoke with our digital forensics contact. We now have enough to build a criminal case if needed. And with what you just sent me, I believe we've found Marcus's biggest vulnerability." I collapsed into my chair, clutching the phone. She continued, "We're not just going to stop Marcus from dodging responsibility. We may very well bring his mother into court, too." While I was preparing dinner, the phone rang. Unknown number, country code, from Switzerland. I answered. A woman's voice came through, soft but tense. "Is this Ava Wilson? I'm Jackie Monroe." I froze. The woman Marcus left me and our daughter for was calling me directly? "I know you have no reason to trust me," she said quickly, "but I need to talk to you. I was wrong to believe Marcus." I stayed silent for a moment. I wasn't sure if I should be angry or just curious. "You have 1 minute," I said. "Marcus lied to me, just like he lied to you. I thought we were starting fresh. Florence, then Geneva, but yesterday I found some encrypted files on his laptop. You need to hear this." I walked into my office and shut the door. "What did you find?" Jackie exhaled sharply. 2 bank accounts, one in the Cayman Islands, the other in Liechtenstein. Over $230,000, 0 cents total. All transferred from your joint account through multiple shell companies. And that's not even the worst part. My palms began to sweat. "What else?" Wrote a document titled Relocation Strategy, detailing his plan to live with me first, then slowly withdraw assets to live alone. No me, no you, no Ellie. You were the legal leverage. I was the emotional cover. His exact words. I couldn't breathe for a second. Jackie continued, her voice breaking. I uploaded everything to a Google Drive folder. I don't want anything to do with him anymore. But I need you to promise me one thing. I can't promise anything until I see what you have. If I give you proof, passport scans, account access, even the wire transfers from his mom, will you make sure I don't get sued? I sat at my desk. I'll pass that to my lawyer. But if you're telling the truth, you just help keep my daughter safe from a toxic man. And I won't forget that. 2 hours later, I received an email from Jackie. Everything she said and more was in it. Bank statements from First Caribbean International Bank, a PDF listing Marcus Wilson as the account holder, signed on the day he left the US. Next to it, a wire transfer from Pamela Wilson, labeled Emergency Reserve URG. I forwarded everything to Lorraine. No message, just the files. She called back in under 10 minutes. We've got everything. I'm filing for an emergency order first thing in the morning, asset freeze, financial monitoring, and a restraining order if needed. I looked toward the bedroom where Ellie was asleep, hugging her worn-out teddy bear. He's not getting a penny, or a chance to come near her again. The next morning, I stood beside Lorraine in front of the family court judge in King County. Lorraine laid out the case in under 10 minutes, confident, crisp, unwavering. She submitted the unauthorized transfers, the fake emails, and evidence that Marcus was attempting to hide assets to avoid his financial obligations. The judge reviewed the documents and struck the gavel. The court orders a freeze on all domestic and international assets in Marcus Wilson's name. He is to have no contact with the plaintiff or the minor child until further notice. I felt something inside me finally loosen, like I'd been carrying chains that had just snapped off. On the way home, Lorraine looked over and said, "You just did what most people are too scared to do. Stand up and flip the script." I looked into the rearview mirror at Ellie sleeping peacefully in her car seat and thought to myself, not for me, for her. Friday afternoon, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport buzzed as usual. Amid the hurried travelers moving through security, a tall man in a dark blue jacket had just cleared customs when two plainclothes officers stepped in front of him. "Mr. Marcus Wilson?" He nodded, still wearing a weary smile. "We have a temporary arrest warrant issued by the King County Court." Marcus's face stiffened. "What's this about? I just came back to—" "You'll be informed in full at the station. Please come with us." No resistance. No scene. But in that silence, Marcus Wilson was finally pulled out of the web he so carefully spun. I got the call from Lorraine 10 minutes later. She said plainly, "He was just detained at the airport. Emergency hearing tomorrow morning. Be ready." I sat alone in my kitchen, staring into a cold cup of tea. I didn't feel joy. I felt focus. A stillness before the storm. The next morning, the courtroom was more crowded than expected. Reporters had clearly caught wind of something, maybe from Jackie or an inside source. I didn't care. All I brought was a file over 300 pages thick. Proof, transaction logs, handwritten letters, documents from Jackie, and my own testimony. Marcus sat across from me, beside a court-appointed lawyer, an older man with graying hair and a tense face. Marcus stared at me, but his eyes no longer held confidence or mockery. Only confusion and fear. Judge Thomas McAllister entered. His voice rang steady through the microphone. "We are here today for an emergency hearing on matters concerning child custody, joint assets, and allegations of identity fraud and financial misconduct. Plaintiff, Ms. Ava Wilson." Lorraine stood first, precise and firm, like a symphony with no wasted notes. "Your Honor, my client was willfully abandoned by the defendant, who transferred all shared assets into offshore accounts. We have evidence that the defendant, with assistance from his mother, impersonated the plaintiff to sabotage job opportunities and hide funds. Additionally, he outlined a written plan to discredit my client's mental fitness as a strategy to obtain custody. Then she presented each item, screenshots, conversations, statements. Marcus's relocation strategy was displayed on screen. Account maps in the Caymans and Liechtenstein. The fake email traced back to Pamela Wilson's IP. I saw Marcus's shoulders tighten. He whispered to his lawyer. But no one could stop the avalanche of truth crashing down. Lorraine ended with a sharp, steady voice. We request full custody be awarded to Ms. Ava Wilson, appointment of an independent financial monitor, asset freeze, and a permanent no-contact order if the court determines there was intent to defraud and deceive. The judge turned to the defense attorney. Your response? Marcus's lawyer stood, visibly sweating. Your Honor, my client is being misunderstood. His actions weren't criminal. He was simply trying to protect his assets during a time of emotional hardship. He didn't get to finish. Judge McAllister banged the gavel. I see no evidence of emotional hardship, only calculated, deliberate manipulation. The court grants all of the plaintiff's requests. Furthermore, this case will be referred to the district attorney's office for investigation into identity fraud, financial deception, and willful obstruction of legal proceedings. Marcus lowered his head. I didn't see a single tear, just the quiet collapse of a man undone by his own lies. As I gathered my files, his eyes flicked toward me. There was no bitterness, only the realization. The woman who once stayed home cooking dinner, who once believed he'd be her forever, was now the one he could never outplay. The King County Court issued its final ruling just 1 week after the emergency hearing. I sat beside Lorraine that morning in the courtroom, gripping my file folder like it was my last shield. Judge McAllister looked Marcus dead in the eye, his expression void of sympathy. Maybe reviewing all documentation, testimonies, evidence, and the defendant's conduct throughout these proceedings, the court rules as follows. The room went completely silent. Full legal and physical custody of Ellie Wilson is granted to Miss Ava Wilson. The defendant, Mr. Marcus Wilson, is stripped of all parental decision-making rights and shall only be permitted supervised visitation at a facility designated by the court. My heart pounded, but I didn't let myself react, not yet. Second, all joint marital assets are frozen and placed under the oversight of an independent financial monitor. The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Liechtenstein have been confirmed as part of an intentional asset concealment operation. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Marcus stiffen, his jaw twitching. Third, Mr. Marcus Wilson is ordered to pay monthly child support based on current and future income, with adjustments tied to the Consumer Price Index. Any delay or evasion will result in criminal charges. Finally, due to Mr. Wilson's collaboration with Ms. Pamela Wilson to impersonate the plaintiff and obstruct due process, Mr. Marcus Wilson is prohibited from leaving the United States until the ongoing criminal investigation concludes. Ms. Pamela Wilson will be subpoenaed and separately investigated for identity fraud and conspiracy. The sound of the gavel hit me like the final crack of a long nightmare finally ending. Lorraine gave my hand a gentle squeeze. We won, Ava, and not just on paper. I nodded. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about Marcus's travel ban or the frozen accounts. I was thinking about Ellie's face the night before, drawing a picture of me hugging her, with the words scribbled underneath, "Mommy is my home." As we exited the courtroom, I caught Marcus's gaze from across the hallway. No more arrogance, no more finger-pointing, just a man realizing his schemes had fallen apart. His lawyer tried a last-ditch effort to delay the asset freeze, citing Marcus needed time to organize finances. The judge shut it down instantly. The defendant had months to prepare. The asset transfers were intentional. There is no valid cause for delay. 2 days later, I received official notice from the district attorney's office. Pamela Wilson was under federal investigation for identity theft and data misuse. She was ordered to appear within 14 days. I sat in front of my laptop staring at that email for a long time. Part of me had hoped Pamela would realize she went too far, but I knew better. Some people never change. And no one has the right to manipulate the law to distort truth. There was no room in my life for blind mercy anymore. That night, I made 2 cups of hot chocolate, set one on the kitchen counter, and took the other into Ellie's room. She was lying in bed with her book, her face softly lit by the night light. "I won," I whispered. Ellie looked up. "What did you win, Mommy?" I smiled, sitting at the edge of her bed. "The right to protect you, the right to speak the truth, and the right to be myself again." Ellie tilted her head. "So, did I win too?" I leaned down and kissed her forehead, my voice cracking. "Yes, sweetheart. You're the greatest victory of my life." 1 month after the final court ruling, I signed the paperwork for a 2-bedroom condo in West Seattle. A quiet area with a small balcony overlooking the lake, close enough to drop Ellie off at school without getting caught in rush hour. It wasn't as spacious as the old house, but here, everything was mine to choose. The wall colors, the moon-shaped nightlight Ellie adored. We called it our starter home. Not because it was temporary, but because it marked the first chapter, built from ruins. I returned to editing at Millstone Books, a respected independent nonfiction publisher. They remembered me, my work ethic, my integrity, and my voice. I didn't have to reprove myself. I just had to sit down at the desk and begin again. Ellie adjusted quickly to her new school. She joined a small group of kids who loved books and drawing. She'd come home with papers full of stick figures and cats in hats. One day, her teacher told me during a parent-teacher conference, "Ellie is incredibly resilient. She seems to understand things other kids haven't even had to think about yet." I smiled gently. I knew why. Ellie wasn't just my daughter. She was a quiet witness to everything I'd endured. Each night, after she fell asleep, I spent an hour writing a journal of the legal battle. Not to relive the pain, but to remember. To remember that I had once shaken with fear, been betrayed to the point of disorientation. But I kept moving forward. Once, I opened my old phone, the one that still held Marcus's first message after he vanished. "Good luck paying rent." Back then I cried. I felt like I'd been dropped in the desert with no water in sight. I had paid off the first 3 months of my new mortgage using settlement money and asset division. I opened a savings account under the name Ellie's Education Fund, and it already had nearly $40,000, 0 cents in it. I also started writing a book. Not a novel, not a memoir, a collection of lessons from non-traditional divorces, where women fought not only the men they once loved, but an entire system eager to doubt them before ever hearing them out. The working title, Trust Me, He's Not Joking, a tongue-in-cheek but dead serious warning for anyone tempted to overlook the little red flags. One night, while I was working on the manuscript, Ellie padded into my room in her dinosaur pajamas. "Mom," she asked, "does Dad still live in Italy?" I closed my laptop. "Not Italy, Spain." "Does he call me?" I looked into her eyes. "Not yet, but if he ever does, I'll be the first to let you know." Ellie nodded. "I'm not sad. We have our new home and my book club." I pulled her into my arms. "We have each other. That's more than enough." In the end, I learned that not every wound needs to heal through forgiveness. Some scars just need to be acknowledged, named, and left in peace as part of the road we traveled. I once thought Marcus's text was the ending, but it turns out it was only the opening line. Ava's story is a powerful reminder that misplaced trust can push us to the edge, but from that same place, inner strength can rise. When abandoned, deceived, and falsely accused, she didn't collapse. Instead, she stood back up, gathered proof, fought for justice, and protected her daughter with the fierce resolve of a mother. In real life, no one is immune to pain, but like Ava, we always have a choice: be consumed by it, or rise and reclaim control of our lives. What do you think about Ava's journey? What would you do if you were in her shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, real life stories about family and resilience.